We can now come to the keynote address that I'm sure all of you have been eagerly waiting for on the topic AI for the World in the context of India as a product nation by Dr. Ajay Chowdhry, founder HCL and chairman Epic Foundation. A brief introduction as I invite him onto the stage. Dr. Ajay Chowdhry is a visionary pioneer who co-founded HCL in 1976 with 5 others with a dream of using the microprocessor and changing the world. He spearheaded HCL's expansion into Singapore in 1980 and created a successful business spanning ASEAN, China, and Hong Kong. Today, HCL is valued at an impressive 50 billion US dollars. In recognition of his efforts to build the IT and electronics industry in India, he was conferred the prestigious Padmabhushan, the 3rd highest civilian honor in India by the Honorable President of India. He is often regarded as the father of Indian hardware. Ladies and gentlemen, please extend a warm welcome to Dr. Ajay Chowdhry.
Well, when you're called father, obviously you look ancient. Do I look ancient? No. Okay. So, I've been given an interesting subject to talk about, and this is something that we have been studying for quite a while. I think if we look at the country today, and we look at our business that we do out of the country, the exports that we do out of the country, pretty much we are a services-oriented country. And as a services-oriented country, we have done extremely well. And it's been led by the software services business in a very big way. And in addition to what has happened in software services, if we look at Bangalore and Karnataka, there are large number of GCCs also who have contributed phenomenally to the growth of our services from India. But they do different kinds of services. So basically, the country has been 60% exports are services. Now, if we look at countries like China and some others, the exports are completely different. They are not dependent on services alone. They are dependent on products and commodities and services. So if you look at China, it's a completely opposite situation where only 20% of exports are services. So where should India go in the next 25 years? What should be our strategy to be placed among the top countries in the world in terms of science and technology? A lot of initiatives have been taken by the Indian government in the last few years, especially in semiconductors and some other deep tech areas. But we really haven't figured out what should be our product strategy, what should be our areas that we should focus on. And therefore, I think if we start to look at the opportunity is for India to be able to, in some manners, start to work on being a product country. So this process was started 8-10 years ago out of Bangalore by iSpirit, and they created the DPI strategy, and that became a very, very large product business. UPI is pretty much the largest in the world. And that has really positioned us brilliantly all over the world as a product country in software. And many, many software product companies got born in the last 10 years. So in software, we have moved from services to products in some ways. I think the same has to be done in literally every part of the industry. We need to be able to move from services to products. And if we are able to do that, then we can actually be extremely successful in creating global Indian companies. How did the United States succeed in science and technology? They started very early. They started in pretty much 1944. In 1944, there was a chief scientist of the US called Vannevar Bush, and he wrote a very interesting manifesto for the president. And soon enough, the president adopted it. And this became the bulwark for around which the science and technology infrastructure of the United States got created. So the first thing that they did was to create an organization like DARPA, which actually challenged private industry to make products and then give them business. And around that, the whole industry got created. The same way they created NASA and many other institutions like this. So where are we today as a country? I think very clearly, 2-3 major things are happening today. So all of you are aware a deep tech policy is in the works. The details have already been published, and we are hoping that that policy will get going very soon. There is, in addition to that, a large amount of development taking place in electronics and semiconductors. Now, in electronics and semiconductors also, we have majorly succeeded in being a services country till now. What do we really do? What we really do is make a large number of phones and other products, but all of them are done by EMS companies. And these EMS companies are basically service companies. So they get components, they put them together, they make the box and ship them out. So it's a services business. This services business is really a very low margin, low end business. So we now need to move away from the low end, low margin business, which is pretty much what we did in software services. We were really at the low end earlier. Today we are at absolutely the high end of the services. So the same thing we need to do in products. So we now need to start to look at how do we design products in India, how do we create products for India and the world. So I've been deeply involved with the government on creating a strategy on this in the last few months. And a task force was set up to create what is called Make India a Electronic Hardware Nation. And this particular direction is something that I expect that the government will adopt pretty soon, where we will have a top-down approach to making products in India. What are the products that are needed? Which products in electronics and chips should we make? And what should we be doing together with that? And how does AI play a role here? AI is going to play a huge role in terms of adding AI and software to making our products whole lot superior and whole lot differentiated. And that is where our capabilities in the country in AI and software would come in as a very important component of creating such products. But AI itself will help in a lot of ways in designing the products. So I think AI will enable us to do much speedier design and development. AI will also help us to improve product quality, because you know how it will help us in the whole product life cycle. It'll do us a lot of good when we actually are creating this product in simple areas like component selection and defect detection, technical documentation, and of course, as we make the product, predictive maintenance. So a whole bunch of these areas will be dramatically improved with utilization of AI. And I do believe that with AI, we'll be able to have more innovative and optimized designs. So I think I see great opportunity for startups to start utilizing AI and start creating products out of India. Because the time has come for us to do that. The new policy that the government is currently working on will encourage startups to make products in India, and funding will be provided by the central government. We are also working with some state governments, my foundation called EPIC, and we are working with some state governments also to work on this, especially Karnataka, where all this design capability sits. Karnataka is pretty much the #1 product state in the country, if I call it, and it has all the capabilities. We have VLSI design engineers, product design engineers, EMS companies, everything exists here. So I think it's a great opportunity for Karnataka to position itself to be what I call a product state. Now, the other areas that are happening as I go forward and see which product areas should India be investing in, which deep tech areas should India be creating products. And that is where I would encourage all engineering schools and startups to pay a lot of attention. The engineering schools have to play a huge role in creating curriculum to make products. Today, if I look at any engineering school, I do not know of any that teaches how to make a product. So I think this change is required if we want to move as a country from services to products. And this is something that we are talking to AICTE and some others, but I think each university in different parts of the country needs to take the lead, and various engineering institutions should take the lead in adding this particular piece to the curriculum. Some of the institutions have already added VLSI design, but they haven't taken it to the next stage of saying, how do we make a product? So I think this is something that is a missing piece that needs to be taken care of. Now, as there's been so much discussion around AI in the last 1 year, especially since ChatGPT got launched, that one thing that we are all missing out is the impact of this technology on services. I think services will face serious headwinds as we go forward. And therefore, we need to move away, not totally move away, of course, we need to move to higher value addition products that we need to make. So if we go from electronics to semiconductors, we now also need to start to look at areas which are going to be very, very big in this country, where our work that we have done till now is very little. So if we look at two-wheeler EVs, we look at drones, we look at space technology products, there's a lot of work going on among startups in the country. But when I go into details of any of these products, I find that they may be making these products in India, they may be designing these products in India, they may be adding beautiful software to those products, but all the components inside are getting imported from China. So we now need to look at how can we start working on the whole value chain inside a product. And we now need to create a lot of those products from India. Therefore, there's a huge opportunity for startups to start to work on 1 or 2 or 3 of those component areas. Like, for example, motors is a huge opportunity in India. And everything gets imported from China today. So we need to look at how do we create this kind of industry in India where products are designed and made in India for the world. Now, within electronics and semiconductors, a policy is coming where design incentives will be provided for startups and private companies. We are also working with the government on looking at 8 or 10 areas like this, like space tech, med tech, and EVs. All these areas we have identified, and we are working with many parts of the government to look at how we can actually energize these areas, how we can get private sector to work with academics and do more and more R&D. This country in the last 20 years, unfortunately, has become a trading country. We buy products from China, we put a logo on top, and we sell them here. Is that the way for a large country like India? No. Our engineering research capability is proven. You look at the GCCs out of India, you look at the 39 billion of ER&D exports that are sitting within the NASSCOM 260 billion of software. That 39 billion is engineering and research exports. That shows our capability. If we can put something on the moon, our engineering and research capability is phenomenal. But we are not using it for the country. Everything is today being used for the world. So GCCs create fantastic products out of India. How many semiconductors are designed in India? How many products are designed in India? Not a single IP resides in India. So what are we really doing? We are providing our manpower to do phenomenal amount of engineering and research exports out of India, but we are not doing something for the country. So I think this needs to change. In the next 15 to 20 years, we need to take India towards a product nation. And AI is going to play a huge role, as I said, everywhere. In each and every product that we design, we will be able to utilize the power of AI to design products a whole lot faster and whole lot better. So I think this is where we must be looking at as we go forward. Now, I have been recently very deeply involved in the whole area of quantum technologies. And this is something that is very interesting because since I was pretty much involved in the initial development of the classical computer in the late 70s when HCL got formed, we designed everything on our own. We designed our motherboards, we designed our operating systems, we wrote our own compilers, we wrote our own databases, we did everything. So when imports were not allowed, as a country we were doing everything. And when imports got allowed, we became trading country. So this needs to change. And I think now is the opportunity for us to take the next step and get deep into quantum technologies. Quantum is something that has not happened very much anywhere else in the world today. We are probably 5 years late in some areas. In some areas, we are about 10 years late. But in most areas, we are also pretty good. For example, if we start to look at quantum communication area, we are pretty much ahead in many, many parts of that. So I think there is a tremendous opportunity for startups and engineering institutes to look at doing work on quantum. And I think this is going to be a large opportunity. Now, I'm part of the National Quantum Mission, and there our strategy is to work on all 4 areas of quantum technologies. One as hardware and algorithms. The other area is communications. The third area is sensors. The fourth area is materials. And each of these areas, we are working on creating engineering and research institutions and PIs to work on technologies here. We will also want to develop our own hardware that is a quantum computer. And we have defined our targets for the next 6 to 8 years. But interestingly, we want to also promote and support startups. So when we started to look at the quantum mission, very early days, we said we will start to work on a policy for startups. So we had discussions with about 60 odd startups we located in the country. And from that, we shortlisted 15. And we started to talk to them. And we discovered that there's a lot of capability sitting here. And I think this is going to be a huge opportunity globally, because this is something that is getting developed today in all parts of the world. Only a few countries and a few companies are ahead. Rest are all pretty similar to what we are. Today, when we took a listing of how many researchers are there in quantum technologies, we discovered there are close to 600 people working on this in the last 5 to 7 years. And especially, for example, in hardware, TIFR has been working on it for the last 12 years. So there's a lot of work that has already started to happen in the country. And we want to make sure that we are able to take it to its next stage of development. A lot of people keep asking me about, when I meet people, the first question that gets asked is, what is the difference between classical and quantum computers? And I guess all of you know that. But I sort of talk about it pretty much like if you're playing the guitar and you have one particular, tone, and, what you can do is that if you have two at the same time, that would pretty much be a quantum computer. So in the case of classical computers, you have 0 or 1. In the case of quantum computers, you have 0 and 1. And that's really what are called qubits. So I think very easily what it shows is that the capability where quantum will go in the future is quite phenomenal. Many areas where today classical computers would take years and years to do will get done in hours. So I think that's really where the world will go. But start to imagine where quantum and AI will work together. And that is going to be a huge new area for us to explore from this country, because we have great AI capability being developed in the country. We seem to have among the largest amount of AI researchers and people who can actually work on AI. Now we need, if we add quantum to it, it makes it extremely interesting, and many areas can be looked at. Now, I think quantum and AI will be an absolute game changer. If we look at all kinds of research that's going on in different areas, especially if you look at drug development will dramatically benefit from both QAI, quantum AI. So I think I look at us having tremendous opportunity in the next 25 years to create a very large product business out of India. And we need to work on each of these areas to be able to establish some global brands out of India. This is something we have not done before. And this is something, if DPI can be done in software, we can also do other areas. So recently, you must have seen that 4G stack got developed out of India. Now, people are working in telecom to make a 5G stack. 4G stack, now it's being rolled out by BSNL all over the country. It shows our capability of being able to design and create products. And the same got demonstrated, if all of you remember, during COVID. We created a vaccine in 6 to 8 months. I think that was a phenomenal effort done by the scientists of this country. So if we can create under stress a product, why can't we create other products in this country? So I think I would like to encourage everybody out here, and I would like everybody to aspire about being a product designer and product developer and utilize the power of AI to actually do it faster and better and more differentiated. I think that will help us to position our country in a much bigger way. With that, I'd like to thank Matrix and TIE for inviting me here. I'm actually finishing the talk a little early, but I'd leave it for people to ask me any questions that they might have on areas that we could be looking at in the future. Sorry?
Semiconductor manufacturing, there are a lot of talk going on where ambition you want to do, but corresponding ecosystem with quality of gas and other things still not there in the country. Of course, you already mentioned that we are happy importing components from China. We have to manufacture everything ourselves. Now, semiconductor, where you're putting a lot of energy manufacturing various microns, there are other supply ecosystem like quality of gas, whatever is required. Is that also being considered?
Oh yes, actually the whole ecosystem has been looked at by the India Semiconductor Mission. And about a year and a half ago, there was an ecosystem meeting of all the global ecosystem suppliers as well as Indian suppliers. And the strategy that has been developed is that wherever the plants are coming up, these kind of products will be made available. So the interesting part is, which I really like the idea, is that there seems to be a concentration of plants coming up in Gujarat. And if we look at creating some kind of a semiconductor area in Gujarat, where all these products will also be made available, the gases and the chemicals and all these things, then it would be the best thing for the country. So future plants should also come around there. There's no sense in spreading ourselves thin. Today, the challenge that I'm seeing is that lots and lots of states are vying to get semiconductor plants. I mean, there's not much sense in us having 5 locations for semiconductors. Having 1 or 2 is the best we should do.
So, you're talking about, so in the pre-services era, there were some very good initiatives that happened in India, right? The semiconductor complex, when it was formed in the 70s, we were way ahead of TSMC or anything, and the
Absolutely.
and one little fire and we killed it, right? When we designed the telephone exchange in CDOT, okay, we were way ahead. There was no Huawei, right? And we were indigenously from ground zero. It was designed. You gave a protected market for space, and we are there in space, vying amongst the world leaders. So, what has enabled China to leapfrog? In the last 20 years, they have taken over in all aspects of science and tech. They have made huge investments. What are we going to do? Are we going to give preferred and their market access is to their people, right? So we need market and we need investment. Are we going to do that or not?
You've really hit the nail on the head. You see, what has made China happen, if you look at the historical perspective, what did they do? They went through 3 phases of development of industry. The first phase was they brought in very large investors into the country, like Tesla and Apple and all these people. They identified those people. They brought them into the country. Stage 1. Stage 2, each of these companies created ecosystems there. They created their suppliers there. They created their component suppliers. So the next stage was Chinese companies started to create products for these large companies. The next stage was that these small Chinese companies became big. And they started to compete with the Tesla. So a BYD was a battery manufacturer. They became a competitor to Tesla, and they're bigger than Tesla today. So this 3-phase strategy that China followed, we haven't. And I think the area where China succeeded was that, number 1, the kind of loans and the cost of money that was provided was very low. Number 2, as you rightly mentioned, they opened up the government market for all large Chinese companies and gave them huge amount of business. And that scaled them so the Huawei became so big, right? The same thing happened in America. DARPA was created just with this strategy. If you look at DARPA, the budget is nothing as compared to DRDO today. They have only 176 people inside DARPA. What are they? They are all project managers. They give out projects to private sector. They challenge the private sector. They give them funds, and then they give them business. Recently, Biden announced a $760 billion Buy America plan. We seem to be very scared of doing that. We have programs like preferential market access, etc., which just don't work. So this is something that we are really working with the government and saying, demand aggregation of government business is essential to create Indian champions. If we don't do that and don't give that kind of support, and also support some of the startups and private companies with strategies to actually help them overcome the disability factors of India. We've actually looked, if you look at the disability factors, there's about 10-12% of disability in India. So when PLI was created, 6% was provided for disability. Similarly, we need to look at the support we need to provide for design in India. Okay, so those schemes have to come up. In semiconductors, there's a program called DLI, which is Design Linked Incentive Scheme. It is a okay scheme, but you know, they ask you to put 50%, 50% is put by the startup. Startup doesn't have that 50%. So these kind of schemes need to be changed and improved. And you're right about all the great technologies that we created in CDOT, etc. They were destroyed by global competitors. And this is very sad, because this should not have happened.
Destroyed by the government, I would say.
Whatever. They listen to the global companies. Vested interests, you know, lots of vested interests.
My question is, but anyway, could you please elaborate on how quantum computing would help AI? I mean, in particular, what I want to know is whether the existing algorithms that we use for deep learning, for the learning part and the usage part, would they translate easily into running on a quantum computer, or would you have to develop algorithms from scratch?
I think you will have to develop, some of the developed ones can be modified to be run on quantum computers, but you will have to look at specific algorithms for quantum, because the treatment on a quantum computer is different. And the kind of languages that are now coming up, I mean, Qiskit and all of those things that are happening, those are the things that we will have to work with. So I think initially it will be a lot about us being able to develop the basic technologies in India. And we are creating 4 thematic hubs in India. And one of them is going to be around hardware, as I said. Along with hardware, we need to look at a whole bunch of algorithms. And that is really where our great strength of software and AI will come into picture.
Thank you.
One last question. No, please. He wants to ask.
Thank you so much for the insightful talk, Dr. Ajay. My question is very specific to the artificial intelligence progress that's happening at this point of time. We've seen that the biggest of the biggest models today consume a lot of power, and to be able to create artificial superintelligence, ASI, or artificial general intelligence, AGI, we need to be able to build much, much bigger models, and that means that we need more compute, and that's being solved. And we also heard from you about the investments that are coming in the semiconductor industry. That's point number 1. But at the same time, to be able to power those GPUs or TPUs or whatever those, we need more power in general, so more energy investments in the next 10 years. So, and that is in the order of like 10,000 or million gigawatt hours of power I'm talking about.
Yes.
So can you briefly talk about the energy investments we are making that will potentially go into data centers in India to be able to power these extraordinary big models?
See, actually, last 10 years, we've done phenomenally good work on alternative sources of energy. But I think hydrogen is going to play a huge role as we look forward. And two companies in India have put their full might behind hydrogen. So both Adani and Reliance have gone and bought about 10, 12 companies all over the world, as you must have heard. So they are creating a complete hydrogen strategy. I think that will be of great value to us. The other area I think we have totally messed up in the country is the nuclear area. We've just closed it. Space is open, nuclear is closed. So nuclear, everybody is still thinking in terms of those huge big plants. The world has moved to MMR, smaller plants. And that is really where we need to go. You know, tomorrow we should be able to imagine that instead of generator, we should be using nuclear power in a complex of buildings. That's really where we need to take nuclear. Nuclear is pretty safe and good and clean. And that is something we have missed out. So one of the things that we are suggesting to the government, and this is a group of us that's working on this, is we now need to create an MMR strategy. And this is something that is essential for the country, because the energy needs are going to be phenomenal, as you rightly said. Yes, we are going to put up these huge systems which they are talking about as part of helping startups in AI to have large systems being put up all over the country by the government. But the power requirements are going to be quite phenomenal. And the other area which is of great interest to me, I think, is that we are not creating a strategy in India to invite data centers to be put up by the world here. Look at the way all of the Southeast Asian countries have created special strategies to invite data centers to get set up there. This is something we missed out also. We should do that. Yeah.
Thank you for that very informative talk. My question was regarding the power requirements for the next revolution, industrial revolution that's coming up. There are so many forms of energy that are, being researched upon, right? Biofuels and hydrogen and all that. And every other day we are seeing new forms of vehicles also, coming up, CNG vehicles and hydrogen vehicles and all that. I would think that we should focus on electric vehicles and look at power plants or thermal plants that can convert all the other forms of energies into electricity, so that we just have to automobile industry can focus only on EV engines. Otherwise, it's going to be a huge expense on experimenting on so many other forms of energies and.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things that's happened in India is that India has taken quite a lead in two-wheeler EVs. We are the world's largest manufacturer today.
Yeah.
I think we need to work, as I said earlier, into creating each of those components for those EV products also. All we are doing is importing those components and putting them together. It's more system integration than actual manufacturing. So I think that's the area that we need to work on in parallel to what you're saying and what we've just discussed about the energy needs of the country. We have to have a diversified strategy for energy development. So nuclear, hydrogen, all these things are going to be absolutely critical in addition to what we have done in the last 10 years. We've done phenomenally good work in solar, for example. But now we need to take the next step and go towards hydrogen and nuclear. We have missed out on nuclear totally. We've not done anything in nuclear for many years. After signing that agreement with the United States, what did we do? We have achieved nothing. So that's the challenge that we have. We have to make those changes in the country.
Another question regarding
I'm
AI.
afraid we're running out of time.
How about how are we planning to counter these deep fake videos and misinformation that's all over the internet with deep fake videos and okay. Sure.
All right, ladies and gentlemen,
Okay,
with
thank
that,
you.
We'd like to request you to please give Dr. Ajay a big round of applause. I'd like to request Mr. T.R. Anand to please come forward and present a small token of appreciation to Dr. Ajay Chowdhry. We'd like to thank him once again for that keynote address.
Yeah, thank you for an outstanding perspective of the future, Dr. Ajay Chowdhry. And on behalf of TIE Bangalore, I invite you to the TIE Global Summit 2024, first time in Bangalore on December 9 to 11, and we'll have a focus session on this. On behalf of TIE Bangalore and Matrix Forum, I invite you to that session, and we can have a lot more interaction.
I'd like to take this time once again to thank Dr. Ajay Chowdhry for joining us here at the 9th edition of the Matrix Global Summit 2024.